I never expected a chance encounter with a drowning billionaire would change my life forever. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. Standing at the edge of the glittering lake, the air thick with summer's warmth, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. My heart raced. It was supposed to be a day of escape. Just me and my thoughts alone, free. But then I heard it. A splash, a desperate gasp, chaos breaking through the calming stillness. I turned my eyes wide. A man flailed in the water, dark hair plastered to his face, panic in his eyes. The sun glinted off his shimmering watch, a flash of gold that pierced my daze. A billionaire, my mind whispered, though I couldn't understand why it mattered. Without thinking, I threw myself into the lake. The cold water shocked my system, every drop like needles against my skin. The world became soundless, muffled, and I pushed towards him, arms thrashing for some grip. I could see the fear etched on his face, the breath escaping from his lips, bubbles mixing with the waves. Closer, closer, until I felt the sting of desperation gnaw at me. I grabbed his hand. His grip was powerful, yet so utterly weightless, the kind of eloquence you rarely find in those battling for breath. His eyes locked onto mine, wide and pleading. A flicker of recognition, as if he saw something there. Maybe a spark of life in my frail frame, or perhaps sheer insanity. We surfaced and I gasped for air, limbs shaking, entire body screaming. The lake blurred before me, the world spinning. A few onlookers gathered, their murmurs suffocating the moment. "He's a tycoon," someone exclaimed, echoing the whispers of shock and awe. I didn't care. All I felt was the thudding in my chest, blood roaring in my ears. We're going to die, I thought. But then he broke through my panic. You saved me." His voice was raw, strained, an unexpected plea wrapped in gratitude. The moment stretched, time slipping away. People rushed forward, their eyes wide with curiosity. What a scene! The drowning billionaire, his savior, with water dripping from her hair. I sensed the stares, the judgment, and one thing crystallized in my mind. This wasn't just a close call. It was a spark, a chance meeting that would lead wherever fate decided. But where? As I stumbled back to dry land, breathing heavy, I caught a glimpse of his gaze, intense, searching. "Why did you jump?" he murmured. In that moment I wanted to scream because I had to. I didn't choose this. But the words wouldn't come. The crowd closed in, snapping pictures, whispering like the wind around us. My heart thudded violently. I wanted to run. I wanted to hide. But instead I held his gaze. The world felt heavy. Everything blurred. Uncertainty enveloping me. Who was I to him? Did he even care? Just as the sirens rang in the distance, echoing through that moment of stillness, I wondered what my life would mean now. Did I just awaken something dangerous? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. In the days that followed the rescue, the world felt like a surreal painting, vivid colors clashing against a backdrop of confusion and unease. I couldn't shake the memory of that moment in the water. The sheer electricity of life hanging in the balance. The billionaire, Ethan Clark, became a part of my thoughts, a ghost haunting the edges of my sanity. Rumors surged around town like wildfires, igniting every corner of gossip. Did you hear? The enigmatic tycoon owes his life to some girl from the lake. Strangers whispered as I walked through familiar streets, my head down, shielded by the canopy of my hair. They didn't know me, and they certainly didn't know the truth hidden within my chest, a truth that was rapidly unraveling, threatening to expose everything I'd been desperately trying to bury. The morning sun crept in through my window, bathing my room in a gentle light, but I found no comfort in it. Each morning began the same, with the weight of the incident tightening its grip around my heart. I went about my daily life, but the mundane tasks held no solace, each moment reflecting back at me the enormity of choice and consequence. Then, on a particularly ordinary afternoon, as I was sorting through the clutter of my life-old clothes, forgotten trinkets, I received a text that made my heart leap into my throat. Can I see you? The message was brief, yet it sent my mind into a flurry. Ethan Clark, the man I had saved. The drowning billionaire who had evoked a tempest within me simply by surviving. We met at a small cafe, tucked away from the prying eyes of the world. He looked different outside the chaos of the incident, still striking, but layered with something softer, more vulnerable. You didn't have to come, I offered, my voice almost cracking under the weight of scrutiny. I needed to, he replied, his words deliberate, each one hanging heavily between us as he sat across from me. You changed everything for me. There was a moment of silence, where the clinking of cups and soft chatter faded into the background. You saved my life, he continued, and I could see the raw honesty coiling around his confession. It made me feel exposed, laid bare under a gaze so penetrating I almost flinched. I didn't think. I mean, it was instinct, I stammered, thorny emotions knotting in my chest. You could have drowned. I didn't intend. I know, he interrupted, leaning forward. But it's not just that. It's everything that came after. I've been living my life locked in a gilded cage, drowning in my own privilege while ignoring those who truly matter. You jumped in for a stranger. That's something I haven't done in a long time. And it made me realize I need to change. To do better. His honesty stirred something deep within me, an ember of hope ignited amidst my own struggles. But how do you even begin to change? The words felt like a challenge, an invitation to dig deeper. In that small cafe with the sun filtering through the windows, I felt sympathy for him. And yet, a darkness stirred inside me, echoing my own fears of connection and exposing myself to another person. You're asking the wrong question, he said softly. What about you? What do you want, really? His eyes pierced into mine, and suddenly, I was no longer just the girl who saved him. I was a mirror reflecting back my own unheeded desires, and dreams, a life overshadowed by responsibilities that left me feeling small and insignificant. All at once my heart slammed up against the wall I had built, and I found myself whispering, I don't know. A flicker of concern crossed his face, and it struck me then how selfish I had been in my thoughts. Here was a man who had nearly lost everything, and yet he was reaching out, looking for something real. But as our conversation deepened, seeping into fears and dreams unspoken, the very foundation of our connection began to tremble under the weight of unacknowledged truths. Our talk shifted as the conversation meandered into deeper topics, and just as I began to sense a shared understanding, my phone erupted with unexpected vibrations, messages flooding in as my heart sank. In a haze I glanced down, the world around me blurring out. News alerts flashed across the screen. Mysterious circumstances surround billionaire's near drowning. Sources claim it was a calculated attempt on his life. My breath caught. The world we had built in those fleeting moments at the cafe shattered into 1,000 pieces. Ethan's expression changed, the warmth replaced by a storm of confusion and anxiety. Is this real? He asked, voice barely above a whisper as he leaned closer, unease washing over him. The truth hung heavily in the air between us, and I sensed it, the impending reckoning. I don't know, I breathed, my heart racing. But we need to find out. But just as I said those words, his phone lit up with a call, an unknown number. I could see him hesitating, fear creeping into his once composed facade. I should take this, he said tentatively, glancing at me as if asking for permission. I nodded, but inside, something felt like it was cracking wide open, threatening to unleash a deluge of chaos that could swallow us whole. In that moment, I knew we were standing at the precipice of something monumental, with shadows creeping in that neither of us could yet understand. And just as he answered, a look of recognition washed over his face. What do you mean? I didn't think I had any enemies. The line went dead. The cafe around us faded into a blur as time stood still, each second laced with stark uncertainty. Something was coming, something none of us could prepare for. And it loomed closer than ever as I held my breath, my heart pounding in the unsettling silence that followed. Ethan's expression shifted from confusion to dread in a heartbeat. I could see the gears of his mind turning, processing something heavy and dark. As his phone slipped from his fingers, a cascade of emotions flooded over him: fear, anger, betrayal. I felt the air thicken around us, the weight of uncertainty pressing down. What did they say? I asked, my voice threading through the silence that felt suffocating. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration etching lines across his forehead. It was just a guy. A voice I didn't recognize. He said it was too late to be careful and that I should look over my shoulder. I thought I left all of that behind. His voice cracked, and for a moment, I glimpsed the frenetic energy that often resided behind his polished exterior. Ethan, I began, desperately searching for words to reassure him. You're safe here. Right now, there's nothing. What if this is just the beginning? He interrupted sharply, his blue eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made my heart race. What if whoever did this comes after me again? Or worse, they come after you? A flush of panic surged through me, slicing through the veneer of the calm I desperately tried to maintain. The idea that he might be under threat felt overwhelming, and the fear of losing someone I hardly knew gripped me with an unexpected ferocity. I wanted to reach out and assure him that we would navigate this together, but the very gravity of our situation kept me anchored back, unsure of how to strike that balance. So what do we do? I whispered, my voice trembling slightly. How do we figure this out? We can't just sit here. The first thing we need is a plan, he said, tightening his jaw. But we can't draw attention. Not here. We need somewhere safe. That familiar tickle of urgency tugged at me, but this time I wasn't sure where it would lead. I nodded, swallowing down the fear, and we quickly slipped out of the cafe, leaving the remnants of hot coffee and shattered calm behind. Ethan drove with a tense concentration, and every bump in the road felt like the world threatening to swallow me whole. I stole glances at him, traces of his earlier vulnerability now obscured behind a mask of determination. The man who had walked in mere minutes ago, openly lost and searching for clarity, had morphed into someone resolute yet haunted. As we sped down the twisting roads, the sun dipped below the horizon, turning the sky a haunting shade of deep orange. I should have felt grateful for the fading light. Instead, I felt more isolated than ever. The reality of what was happening, a billionaire's life seemingly hanging by a thread, and my own entanglement in a situation spiraling into danger made it difficult to breathe. Where are we going? I finally managed to ask, dreading the answer. A safe place. An old apartment I keep for emergencies, he replied, his tone clipped. I just need to get my thoughts organized. We'll figure out the next steps from there. We drove in silence, the weight of circumstance falling heavily on our shoulders. With each passing mile, my anxiety shifted into a resolve, a stubborn insistence. I wouldn't let myself be a passive participant in this unfolding chaos. When Ethan finally parked, the spaces that surrounded us felt cloistered, a refuge that stood removed from the outside world. As we climbed the stairs to the dimly lit apartment, I could feel a sense of foreboding clinging to every shadow, as if the very walls were imbued with memories we would rather forget. The interior was sparsely furnished, a few essential pieces cluttered around a modest kitchen. I scanned the flat, feeling simultaneously comforted by its unadorned simplicity, and shaken by the underlying tension tethered between us. And although I didn't want to admit it, I was beginning to feel that the sanctuary we had sought might be merely an illusion. Ethan paced the small living room, his brow furrowing deeper with every minute. If it's true about the attempt on my life, I need to understand who's behind it. Will you call the police? I hesitated, unsure of how to broach the subject delicately. No, he replied sharply, and my stomach twisted at the intensity of his rejection. That's the first mistake. The last thing I want is for this to become public. I've dealt with that kind of attention before, and I won't drag you into it. Ethan, I already am in it, I insisted, my voice gaining strength. Whatever's happening, I'm here with you. If this is dangerous, he turned sharply, and for the first time I saw the turmoil in his eyes. I don't want to put you at risk because of my life. I can't. Stop thinking like that, I exclaimed, my heart pounding as a sense of defiance rooted itself within me. You're not alone in this. I refuse to let you push me away. I want to help. He paused, the weight of my words hanging in the charged air. And for a heartbeat, we existed in a fragile truce, a moment suspended in fear and solidarity. Yet that brief reprieve shattered when there was a sudden, heavy knock at the door, reverberating through the silence. Ethan went still, the tension coiling tightly in the air as he exchanged a fearful glance with me. I felt ignorant of the storm we had unwittingly stepped into, but one thing was unmistakable. We were now caught in the eye of a hurricane, and danger was closer than we'd ever imagined. Ethan approached the door cautiously, tension radiating from his body like a beacon. My heart thudded in my chest, filling the air with an ominous rhythm, as I silently urged him to retreat, but he steeled his resolve. "Stay back," he whispered, drawing close. Each knock resonated louder, pounding like a war drum forcing its way into our safe haven. My breath caught, suspense winding tighter with every heartbeat, leaving me on edge, the world beyond that door pressing in with ruthless intent. "Ethan," I spoke softly, my voice barely more than a breath. But deep down, as I faced the threat growing in those moments, I realized the true battle was just beginning, and our worlds were about to collide in ways we had yet to understand. Ethan's body tensed, his feet planted firmly just inches from the door. The urgency in those knocks altered the very atmosphere around us. It was as if they summoned shadows dancing along the walls, threatening to eclipse the faint flicker of safety we had managed to grasp. "Ethan," I insisted, my voice barely steady enough to carry the weight of my fear. "We can't just open the door without knowing who it is." There was an electricity between us, a shared understanding that echoed without words. He wasn't just a client to me anymore. He had become a companion in this suffocating maze of uncertainty. He turned to me, the conflict clear in his eyes. There was a fierce protectiveness mixed with a haunting vulnerability, two things that both drew me to him and terrified me. "I need to see who it is," he said, the resolve in his voice quaking slightly. "Could be someone I trust. Or it could be the exact opposite," I countered, my instincts flaring. "What if it's someone who has been watching you? Someone who means to hurt you?" But before he could respond, the knocking grew louder, more insistent, as if the intruder was already aware of the tension brewing within our cramped sanctuary. Ethan could sense it too. The uncertainty that had plagued his thoughts now demanded action. "Stay back," he commanded softly but firmly, and I took a step away, the beating of my heart loud in my ears. He moved closer to the door, and I readied myself for an instant reaction, whatever it may be. With a shaky hand, he reached for the doorknob, hesitating just for a moment before swinging it open. The sight that awaited us felt surreal. A man stood at the threshold, his silhouette shrouded in the shadow of the corridor outside. His face, partially hidden beneath a hood, bore a deep scar running along the side of his jaw, an indelible mark of a life spent in chaos. His eyes shifted rapidly between Ethan and me, flickering with a knowing darkness. "Ethan," he acknowledged, his voice gravelly yet calm. "We need to talk." "Who the hell are you?" Ethan snapped, stepping forward, his bravado a stark contrast to the palpable dread in the air. "I'm someone who can help," the man replied, but there was an edge of menace in his tone that sent shivers racing down my spine. The moment felt stretched thin, time defying the usual grasp of reality, as each word hung suspended, dripping with tension. I could see that Ethan was wrestling with instinct and reason, the tug-of-war playing out behind his eyes as he recoiled slightly at the man's approach. It was clear he didn't trust this stranger any more than I did, yet he seemed magnetically drawn toward the man's presence. "What's this about?" Ethan asked cautiously. "There's more at play here than you know," the man continued, taking a deliberate step into the room, his demeanor almost casual, as if he belonged in the very heart of our fear. "They've been watching you." "Who?" I found myself interjecting, my voice rising above the thick air that threatened to smother us. "What do you mean? What do you know?" His eyes cut to mine, and in that split second, a chilling recognition flickered across his face. "I was sent to warn you. You need to leave this place." "Leave? Just like that?" Ethan countered, skepticism sharp in his tone. "Why should we trust you?" "Because if you don't, the next knock won't be for a friendly conversation," the man said bluntly, his expression a grim mask of urgency that suddenly felt as real as the threat looming outside. "They're after you for more than just revenge. It's bigger than you think, Ethan." A flash of confusion crossed Ethan's face, mingled with something more profound, fear intertwined with the ember of determination that had once flickered so brightly. "Why? I've done nothing. That's exactly why you're in danger," the man interrupted, his voice a low, steady rumble. "There are consequences for your past, and they don't intend to let you forget it." The enormity of his words sank in like a stone dropped into still water, rippling outward with each beat of our hearts. I felt a wave of uncertainty crash over me, leaving me desperate for clarity. "What are we supposed to do?" I asked, my voice tight with panic. "Stay quiet and gather what you can. We have to keep you safe. I'll work on a plan, but you can't trust anyone." "Not yet." He paused, the weight of his gaze shifting to Ethan. Anyone watching you will know you're here. Why should we take your word for it? Ethan challenged, defiance in the air thick enough to cut. Because the choice is yours. You can believe me or you can roll the dice with whatever is hunting you, he countered, his eyes burning with conviction with every tick of the clock echoing against the walls. I was thrust deeper into the chaos surrounding us. The uncertainty hung heavy over my spirit, a veil of doubt mingling with an inexplicable spark of hope burning beneath it all. I understood the risk we faced, the fragile links binding us both to this man and the secrets he might unearth. Ethan's jaw tightened, a tumult of emotions playing out like shadows across his face. What were we looking for then? He finally asked, the fight in him hovering dangerously close to surrender. Information was the man's simple reply, and a way to ensure you're not cornered next time. As they began to strategize, the shadows outside began to blur and thicken, drifting closer, an omen of the darkness closing in around us. And just when I thought clarity might break through the fog of uncertainty, I registered a flash of movement through the nearby window, a fleeting shadow darting past in the night. My heart sank as the implications washed over me, painting pictures of dread behind my eyelids. Ethan, I started, but before I could finish, a cold chill swept through the air, and lights from outside split the darkness. Stay here, he commanded sharply, moving toward the window before abruptly turning to face me, eyes full of a foreboding revelation. Whatever happens, don't open the door for anyone but me. Panic surged as he stepped into the shadowy hallway, leaving my heart pounding like a drum against the bright silence of the room. The moment felt infinitely fragile, teetering on a knife edge of danger and uncertainty. As I clutched the edges of the counter for support, I realized this was more than just a simple threat. Our lives had just crossed an irreversible line, cascading down a tumultuous path from which there would be no return. And just as I processed the full weight of the situation, I heard it again, a persistent, chilling knock, but this time accompanied by a voice that struck ice deep into my core. Ethan, let me in. It's urgent. Our worlds were about to unravel, shattered by revelations still waiting in the shadows. The true nature of the battle we faced loomed just beyond reach, and as dread washed over me like the tide, I couldn't shake the sense that we were standing at the precipice of a storm threatening to consume everything we thought we knew. Ethan's footsteps faded into the hallway, leaving me suspended in a suffocating silence that echoed with the weight of unspoken fears. The anxious dread coiled tighter around my chest as I braced myself against the counter, my mind racing with visions of what lay outside our fragile haven. The new voice beyond the door ignited a flicker of panic within me, swelling like a wave ready to crash. Ethan, let me in. It's urgent. The words were heavy, laced with desperation, pulling me closer to the edge of a cliff I never intended to approach. My heart drummed loudly in my ears, a frantic rhythm urging me to let the weight of uncertainty tip me into action. What was happening outside? Who was this person who felt so familiar to Ethan that their urgency could summon him back from the precipice of danger? I fought the urge to shout for him, to beckon him back to me, but I knew the stakes attached to the discovery of a trusted voice. Our circumstances dictated caution and unyielding necessity for survival that didn't allow room for mistakes. The ominous knock came again, a heavier thud that vibrated through the wood of the door, resonating deep within me. Ethan, please. I know you're there. I crept closer to the door, each cautious step fraught with uncertainty. The pleading in her voice, a woman I realized was tinged with urgency, her need palpable, aching. But I couldn't shake the whisper of dread curling around my thoughts. Ethan, I shouted, torn between the instinct to protect and the longing to understand. Nothing. The silence grew louder. An oppressive blanket wrapped around me, thickening the air. I pressed my ear against the door, straining to hear any hint of his response, but only the sound of my heartbeat echoed back. Please. It's important. My heart raced faster at the weight of her desperation. What had occurred in the moment since Ethan had slipped away? A sense of kinship swelled within me as I imagined the struggles that had led this woman to Ethan's door. We had all been battling our own demons in a world where shadows lurked in corners too dark to see. But would opening the door usher in salvation or destruction? With hesitation clinging to me like ivy, I stepped back, weighing my options. The resolve etched into Ethan's features flashed through my mind, his insistence to stay alert, to protect himself and by extension me. A flicker of courage surged within me, fueled by my conviction to be the anchor amid this tempest. Gripping the counter, I called out, "Ethan, stay where you are." He shouted back, the urgency lacing his tone as if he felt the tension radiating through the walls. Before he could finish, the door rattled violently, an unyielding force against the wood. My breath caught in my throat as panic surged anew. Just as quickly as it had gripped me, a memory flared to life, of all the moments that fused my fate to his, how he had saved me before, not from danger but from myself. "Ethan!" I shouted once more, desperate now, my voice spilling into the air like a prayer. "Whatever's happening, please just hold on. I need seconds." His voice, fierce yet laced with strain, resonated back. Bolstered by his unwavering spirit, I inched towards the door, caught between the warmth of needing to help and the chill of the unknown. Yet all that remained was a suspended moment where chaos painted our fates with strokes of uncertainty. Suddenly, the woman's voice, more frantic, slipped through the cracks in the door. "Ethan, it's about your mother. You have to let me in." My heart lurched at the implication, as if a scream had pierced the veil of our fragile tranquility. His mother. The secrets had always been an intricate web, pulling tighter with every startling twist I uncovered, yet I hadn't expected this. A vortex of emotions twisted inside me, fear solidifying, doubt intertwining with the urgency of this revelation. "Ethan, she's in danger." The woman pressed, and the weight of those words hung heavy in the air, wrapping around us, the dark embrace of turmoil that I stumbled back, almost falling into the nearby wall, my mind whirling. Pieces of Ethan's life swum into view, his mentions of a past that held shards of darkness, his mother, always in the periphery of his thoughts but never fully unveiled, cloaked in a protective armor he wore dutifully. The knock came again, faster now, an impatient thrumming that roused anxiety into a crescendo. "You can't ignore this." "Not now." Before I could fully process all I had just heard, the initial shimmer of hope flickered dimly against the backdrop of impending danger, a promise that seemed all too delicate to recognize. Our protective barriers had grown thin, and the reality was that the ties that bound us now stretched across fragile connections, fraying at the seams. "Ethan," I whispered, my voice barely a murmur, grasping desperately for his presence as if I could will him back through sheer determination. "We need each other." Just as I steadied myself, the door suddenly burst open, revealing a gust of cold air that swept into the room. Ethan didn't step inside. Instead, he stood rigidly at the threshold, his face taut with a blend of anguish and determination. "Get downstairs," he commanded, glancing back towards the corridor, "and don't move. I'll be right behind you." Behind him, another figure emerged, somehow both a beacon of hope and a harbinger of doom. The woman who had called for him looked disheveled yet fierce, her eyes sharp and determined, flickering with urgency. "They're here," she gasped, brushing past Ethan into the room, concern painted across her features. "Ethan, we don't have time." "No," he interjected, the firmness of his tone slicing through the air. "You'll be safer? They will find us if we don't move now." The truth settled deep within me like a raging storm. The line between safety and survival was thinner than I'd ever imagined. And confronted with the starkness of the moment, the vulnerability that left us all exposed, woefully unprepared, I could only grasp the slimmest threads of hope that we might still emerge intact. But just as the weight of indecision bore heavily upon me, a distant yet tangible crashing sound crested through the silence outside. My pulse quickened, an instinctive warning signaling the approach of something dark and relentless. "Ethan!" I cried out in desperation, torn between needing to flee and the gravity of the moment. "We can't let them take you." He spun to face me, his expression a mixture of anguish and determination. "It's not just about me anymore," he said, fiercely protective. "It's about all of us." And before I could fully grasp the enormity of that revelation, and the stakes weaving our fates closer, a sudden crash echoed through the hallway, splitting the air with a finality that left me breathless. Time itself seemed to pause as we stood on the brink, captured in the throes of an impending storm, wondering if we would be swept away in its tumult or find our way back to safety. Together, as shadows loomed larger, we braced ourselves for what would come next, aware that this was only the beginning of a confrontation that threatened to unravel everything we held dear. The vibrancy of adrenaline coursed through me as I gripped the edge of the counter, the reality of Ethan's words settling in my bones. It's not just about me anymore. A chill raced down my spine, amplified by the ominous sounds reverberating from the hallway. My gaze flickered between Ethan's resolute expression and the woman beside him, who exuded an aura of strength I desperately longed to harness. "We need to move," I urged, my voice breaking slightly as more crashing sounds echoed menacingly closer. My heart pounded like a drum in the trembling silence that followed, anticipation building with each passing second. The weight of uncertainty hung heavily in the air, thickening the atmosphere around us. Just then, the woman took a step forward, her eyes locked onto Ethan with an intensity that sparked both confusion and intrigue within me. "This is bigger than we anticipated," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding us. "I don't know how long we can stay hidden. There are too many eyes looking for you, Ethan." "Who are they?" I blurted, the question tumbling from my lips as the gravity of our situation bore down on me. The tension in the room felt electric, and I felt the urge to retreat, to find comfort in ignorance. But I couldn't. "Not now. They're not just after me," Ethan replied, his brow furrowing. "They want my mother, and I think they're coming for you too." My stomach dropped. The prospect of being engulfed in danger, of my life intertwining with Ethan S. in this way, filled me with a petrifying clarity. Who were these unseen forces, and how had our lives become so interwoven with their dark intentions? A new sound arose outside the door, faint at first but escalating, a low hum that settled into an uncomfortable vibration, as if the very walls around us resonated in response. Panic flared inside me, igniting the instinct to flee. "What do we do?" I breathed, urgency lacing my tone, glancing back at the door, then at the faces formed by worry. Ethan's gaze turned to the woman. "Can you hold them off?" Her lips pressed together in a thin line, revealing a hint of resolve. "I can distract them. You need to get somewhere safe." She hesitated just a beat, her eyes scanning me before settling back on him. With her, a mounting feeling of dread settled deep within me. I stood frozen, the weight of their discussion colliding with my inner turmoil. I trusted Ethan with my life, but I had no idea what I was stepping into. Signals of fear were woven through the unsteady fabric of our connection, clues leading me down an unfathomable path. "It's too dangerous," I interjected softly, my voice barely rising above a whisper, but even as I spoke an unsettling resolve was building. I couldn't witness Ethan sacrifice his safety. "We should stay together. Listen to me," he said, his voice firm yet tender, urging me back to reality. "Whatever happens, don't underestimate how much you mean to me." His words enveloped me in warmth and acknowledgement, yet fear spiraled around the corners of those sentiments. "You need to get to safety. Just trust me." A knot formed in my throat, my heart aching at the thought of being apart. Yet there was also clarity in his conviction, a clarity I wanted to prevent from shattering. I took a deep breath, processing everything swirling around me, the unknowns tumbling into a chaotic spiral. "Do you promise?" I asked, gripping his forearm. "Promise you'll come back?" "I promise," he assured, the intensity in his gaze offering a small shard of hope amid the darkening clouds. As the distant noises morphed into a chaotic symphony of chaos, thumps echoing from the hallway, footsteps converging, I felt the ground beneath me shift. The woman moved towards the door, positioning herself bravely against it. "Go now," she urged, her voice steady with purpose. That I hesitated, sorely aware that every moment detached me from him. As a loud crash shook the very foundations of our clandestine sanctuary, an impulse I didn't understand urged me forward. "Ethan." I clung to his words, unwilling to break our shared vow of trust. "Stay close," he shouted, his gaze flickering toward the hallway, heart racing as it dawned on us that they were moments away from breaching the threshold. And with that, we tore through the door, silence shattered behind us, urgency consuming our every motion. The corridor was dimly lit, a fleeting time capsule of uncertainty. "This way," Ethan gestured. We moved quickly, adrenaline fueling our fears, racing through the shadows, uncertain of what lay ahead. While racing along the narrow hallway, the world outside faded, the cacophony of sound engulfing us. Our feet thudded against the floor, and uncertainty filled the space left by every sound we guessed was behind us. "What suddenly shifted?" I questioned, struggling to comprehend how such a simple knock had unmoored our entire existence. "You'd mentioned a connection with danger, but it feels like this is eclipsing everything." "Because they're desperate," he replied, adrenaline coursing through his voice as we turned a corner. I left something behind, something that they'll stop at nothing to retrieve. What? I pressed, confusion marbling with fear. Suddenly realization pierced through the fog. Your mother? Is that what you were trying to protect? He stepped faster, leading me into a stairwell, voices echoing behind us. Everything I've tried to keep her safe, he responded, his voice lower, full of self-recrimination. But I've been careless. I should have known they'd find us. Before I could respond with encouragement or renewed trust, he stopped short, turning to face me, urgency casting shadows across his features. I can't let them take you too. Commitment thrummed between us, our shared resolve threading through our vulnerabilities as the air thickened with anticipation. But a dense fog of uncertainty still clouded my mind as my heart raced violently with the knowledge that I couldn't let him shoulder this burden alone. Suddenly, the door at the other end of the corridor slammed open with a reverberating crack that stole my breath, and I caught a glimpse of dark silhouettes casting shadows against the wall. My heart dropped as I felt the full weight of fear tethered to us, fear of losing everything in the unforgiving hands of fate. Ethan, we need to go. The realization that we were racing against time merged with my desire to stay anchored to him. I darted behind him, fear clinging to my back like a shadow. But just as hope glimmered again through the darkness, an icy voice sliced through the air, echoing with certainty. You think you can escape? It's time to come home, Ethan. At that moment I realized the chase had turned doubly perilous. This was not just a flight from danger, but a fight for Ethan's identity shrouded in mysteries I had yet to unravel. The stakes burned hotter, drawing us deeper into a whirlpool of fate as we scrambled toward a future clouded in uncertainty. With courage flickering like a dying flame, I pulled on Ethan's arm, urging him forward. But as I looked back at the approaching shadows, dread coiled tightly around my heart, whispering that what waited in the depths of the darkness would reveal far more than we were ready to face. The air crackled with tension as we sprinted deeper into the unknown, the oppressive shadows behind us gaining ground. Ethan, I shouted, heart racing, we need a plan. His eyes darted around, fueled by instinct and fear. Amidst the chaos, clarity surged through me. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about unraveling the web of secrets that had led us to this moment. Tell me more about them. What do they want? He dragged in a shaky breath, the weight of his thoughts tangible. They want control over my mother, over me. It's not just family bonds they're after. It's something more. The stairwell closed in around us, concrete walls echoing our footsteps as we ascended to who knew where. Every creak and groan threatened to expose us. What do you mean something more? I pressed, needing to grasp every thread of his story, each detail woven into the guise of protection. His jaw tightened, and for the first time I noticed the flicker of fear in his eyes. The company. It's not just a business, it's a legacy. One they believe should have been theirs, he confided. But they won't just end it there. They'll come after anyone who stands in their way. Anyone who could threaten their influence. Suddenly the revelation hit me like a punch. This was bigger than I had imagined. The world I thought I understood shattered at my feet, replaced by a new reality teeming with danger and deception. And you believe they'll come after me just because you care? He interrupted, a fierce intensity softening his tone. They'll see you as a weakness, a leverage point. I can't let them touch you. If you think I'm going to stand by while you face this alone, I started, indignation surging within me. But he cut me off with a fervent shake of his head. That's just it. Being apart is a risk I can't take. You have to understand, it's not just about us escaping. There is so much at stake. His voice was a measured whisper, underscored by an urgency that sent chills through me as we reached the top of the stairs. We burst into a hallway bathed in the faint light of an emergency exit sign. The dull thrum of chaos began to fade slightly, replaced by a deeper, unsettling stillness. Do you think we lost them? I breathed, not allowing myself to hope, to be naive in the face of this burgeoning threat. Ethan's expression hardened. Not yet. We have to keep moving. He glanced over his shoulder, always suspicious of what lurked behind. Just as the reality of our isolation began to sink in, my heart flickered with a tiny ember of hope that right now felt impossibly stubborn. If only we could find a way out. Together we cautiously navigated the corridor, the path unfurling like a dark tapestry of uncertainties. We approached a small window at the end, the faint light spilling through the grimy glass. But as I glanced outside, the glint of a car speeding along the street below sent icy tendrils of fear slipping down my spine. "They're still out there," I murmured, despair mingling with the determination to fight against our impending doom. Ethan placed a hand on my shoulder, grounding me in the spiraling storm of emotions. "We'll figure this out. Whatever it takes, I will protect you." In that moment, his resolve felt as fierce as any storm. But before I could respond, echoing footsteps emerged behind us, rhythmic and unforgiving. My heart sank, panic flooding my system. "We need to decide now." "Through the window," Ethan urged as he lunged towards it, the sound of pursuit growing louder. I hesitated, fear clashing with the realization that if we stayed, we would be cornered. As he opened the window and hoisted himself onto the ledge, my body moved on instinct. I climbed up alongside him, every single bone in my body screaming that this was a reckless decision, yet I couldn't let go. We would leap together or falter in unison. We both paused at the edge, greedily stealing glances at the plunge below, the street beckoning us towards a freedom that felt distant. "We jump on 3, Ethan whispered, and I felt adrenaline surge at his words. 1, 2, but before he could say 3, a hand reached from the shadows and grabbed my arm. I yelped, gut twisting as panic seized me. "No!" I screamed, struggling against my captor. Ethan turned in horror, eyes widening. In a flash, 2 figures emerged from the darkness, forcing him back, cutting off our escape. "Now you're playing into our hands," one of them sneered. A sick smile curling his lips, I fought against the grip that threatened to pull me into their clutches, but their strength outmatched my desperation. My eyes collided with Ethan's, our worlds crashing together, and I saw the horror of betrayal reflected in his gaze. The sense of impending nightmare wrapped itself around me as voices reverberated in my ears, the truth of the chaotic whirlwind we had uncovered echoing harshly against the backdrop of our fear. I had naively believed we could run, but the truth was like quicksand, pulling us further into its depths. With our hope waning, the shadows closed in, binding us with their darkness as I squeezed my eyes shut, praying that somehow, against all odds, our journey was far from over. The grip on my arm tightened, and the shadows seemed to stretch and merge, swallowing the dim light around us. I felt a bolt of terror shoot through me, seeping into my very bones. Ethan's terrified eyes burned into mine as we held each other's gaze, searching for any hint of strength amidst the chaos that surrounded us. "Let her go," he shouted, an ember of defiance igniting in his voice. But the 2 figures simply exchanged amused glances, savoring my fear like a sweet dessert. The thrill of their power was palpable, and I felt it coil around my throat like a noose. "Why would we do that?" the taller of the 2 taunted, his voice dripping with contempt. "She's the perfect bait, Ethan. The last piece in this overwhelming game of chess." I struggled against my captor, my breath coming in quick bursts as panic surged. "You won't get away with this," I choked out, my voice barely above a whisper. But deep inside me, doubt began to take root. In that moment, I started to wonder if anyone would really care enough to chase after us. "Oh, but we already have," the other sneered. "You have no idea how far we'll go to claim what's ours." Desperation mingled with fury as I racked my brain for any semblance of a plan, any possibility of escape. The frigid air was thick with tension, each heartbeat resonating with the realization that I was more than just a pawn. I was Ethan's tether to the world he was fighting against. Ethan stepped forward, defiance blazing in his eyes. "If you think holding her will intimidate me, you're mistaken. I have something you'll never have, the will to fight." The taller figure's smile faltered for a moment before erupting into a chilling laugh. "Oh, how noble of you. But you're so much more useful to us alive than dead, Ethan. We have no intention of hurting her yet." The word yet hung in the air, heavy and ominous, like a storm cloud waiting to burst. I knew it was a tactic, a way to rattle Ethan, to twist the knife deeper. But I couldn't let fear consume us, nor could I let them manipulate my weakness against him. In a moment of clarity, I tugged on the grip that held me, my voice steady and firm. "Ethan, listen to me. We won't let fear dictate our choices. We're stronger together." His gaze flicked toward me, confusion mingling with doubt, and I felt a current of determination swell between us, a bond fortified by shared threats. The unyielding tension was raw, pulsating with our defiance. "Don't let them take away our choices." They want us to break. I shouted, forcing my voice to rise above the chaos. We fight together no matter what. The moment of connection sparked a memory within Ethan, and I saw a flicker of recognition cross his features. The seriousness of our situation melded into an unspoken understanding that we were worth fighting for, not just against them, but for each other. Fine. You want a game? Ethan said suddenly, an unexpected glint igniting in his eyes. Let us play. To my astonishment, he turned, raising his hands in a gesture of surrender. Take us wherever you want. First, let us stop wasting time in an alley. You must love the thrill of the chase. Why not give us a proper show? I caught my breath, surprised by his audacity. But the boldness in his plan unraveled new possibilities. Ethan, what are you doing? I whispered, panic creeping back in. They think this is still a game, he replied softly, a spark of hope hidden in his tone. Let us give them a real one. As confusion flitted across the captors' faces, Ethan started walking backward towards the edge of the alley. It was risky, perhaps reckless, but somehow I sensed that his instincts were leading us towards something uncharted, a window of possibility in the dark. The captors exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of how to respond. You think playful banter will save you both? One of them sneered again, though their resolve appeared shaken. It's not about saving us, Ethan answered, a captivating confidence building within him. It's about understanding how far you're willing to go. Without warning, he lunged toward the treacherous edge, pulling me with him, and I felt adrenaline crash through me as we went tumbling down. But instead of falling into oblivion, we dropped into a narrow side street, concealed by shadows that cradled us like old friends. Heart pounding, I scrambled to my feet as he grabbed my hand. Go, he urged, and I shoved aside every ounce of fear, running with all the strength raging in my veins. As we darted through the winding maze of the streets, I couldn't shake the whispers of the danger we'd just escaped. But there was something else too, a flicker of a plan igniting in Ethan's mind, one that could lead us to a deeper understanding of the looming threat against us. Moments later, we ducked into a dimly lit cafe, the door closing behind us with a muffled thud. Collapsing against the cool wall, our breaths mingled in a frantic rhythm. Now what? I gasped, still reeling from the rush. Ethan leaned closer, intense and unyielding. We need to find out who else is in this game, and where your unexpected connection fits in. I felt a shudder of realization at the weight of it all, our lives, like a fragile house of cards, balanced precariously on the brink. Just then a muffled cry echoed from outside, and the anxious look on Ethan's face deepened, a storm brewing within his expression. Ethan? I whispered, fear clawing at my throat. As he turned toward the door, I sensed a shift that sent my heart spiraling. The shadows that had trailed us weren't as distant as we had hoped, they were closing in, and just like that, the cafe door swung open, revealing the unmistakable silhouette of the tall figure from before, a sinister grin etched on his face. Did you really think you could escape? He taunted, footsteps echoing ominously as he stepped forward, darkness spilling into our sanctuary, and that moment, I grasped the full weight of the truth. The battle was far from over, and the secrets of our lives were about to unravel in ways I could never expect or prepare for. The chilling laugh of the figure froze the air around us, and my heart raced, each thrum echoing the gravity of our perilous situation. Ethan stepped to my side, unwilling to let fear render him paralyzed. He narrowed his gaze, searching for any sign of vulnerability in our new adversary. Back off, he warned, his voice taut like a fraying wire. You don't want to do this. The figure sneered, his amusement simmering beneath the surface. Oh, but you see, this is precisely what I want, he replied, his cold eyes flicking toward me. Your fear, your struggles, this is entertainment for me. The stakes are higher than you think. There's always a way out, I interjected, trying to summon a defiance I didn't fully feel. Every fiber of my being urged me to flee, yet standing still beside Ethan felt equally terrifying. You think you control this game, but you're wrong. The figure's smile widened, a grotesque mask of delight. Spoken like a true pawn. But remember, if you want to play, you must be ready to sacrifice. He leaned forward, his presence oppressive. What would you give to escape this nightmare? A heavy silence unfurled, slithering through the cafe, thick with both dread and anticipation. I felt Ethan tense beside me, the weight of his anxiety palpable. We're not sacrificing anything, he grounded. a fierce resolve rising within him. You can't take away our choices. Oh, but I already have. His voice dripped with satisfaction. You see, there's a little surprise waiting for you. Tell me, how far would you go to protect each other? Are you ready to find out just how deep the rabbit hole goes? My heart sank, a knot tightening in my stomach. I had a sinking feeling that this was only the beginning of a darker path. What do you mean? I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. Let me introduce you to someone, he said, stepping aside as another shadow loomed behind him, dark and looming. A second figure emerged, this one dressed in sleek, expensive clothes, with an icy glint that could freeze flames. Meet my associate Marcus, he said, gesturing with a flourish. He has a taste for desperation, you know, and he simply adores exploring personal limits. A chill coursed through me as Marcus stepped forward, exuding a predatory air. I raised my chin defiantly, trying to summon brave confidence. You won't intimidate us, I declared, forcing the words out even as my heart raced. But just as I spoke, Marcus flashed a smirk and produced a sleek phone from his pocket, the screen illuminating the darkness like a beacon of dread. How about we start with a little game of information? Before I could even blink, he pushed a button, and the cafe's televisions crackled to life, instantly displaying a live feed of my home. My breath hitched as panic washed over me. There it was, my life laid bare for all to see, exposed in a vulnerable, humiliating light. What the hell? Ethan's voice was strained, fury cropping up against the encroaching dread. Your choices are getting clearer. The original figure leaned back, delighting in our despair. Each live feed you see is a choice. One connection leads to another. People from your life will start appearing, and they will pay the price for what you refuse to protect. No, I shouted, urgency clawing at my vocal cords. You can't use them against us. Can't I? He taunted. Tell me, what will you give to save your loved ones? What are their lives worth to you, really? In that instant, the weight of his words crashed down like a tidal wave. I could feel my heart thumping in my chest, each beat echoing the truth that something deep, raw, and profound was at stake. This was no longer just about Ethan and me. The specter of our choices loomed larger than either of us had imagined. This isn't just a game, Ethan said through gritted teeth, voice quivering with barely leashed rage. This is sick. The figure gestured casually, ignoring Ethan's fury. You can fight each step of the way, but here's the twist. Every refusal will have consequences. Choose wisely. Then the screen switched to static, the air now thick with the taut. Silence, an unsettling pause before the unfolding reality set in. What would happen to our families and friends? I could only imagine the reach of this malicious game, twisting every element of our lives. I won't let you do this, I declared firmly, the bitterness in my voice stark against the backdrop of uncertainty. We'll find our way to fight together. Ethan shot me a sideways glance, the spark of rebellion igniting anew between us. You think you can outsmart me? The figure laughed, his voice echoing in the growing darkness. I have only just begun to play. And with that, the figure and Marcus retreated, leaving behind a chilling silence in the cafe, punctuated only by the disquieting visuals on the screen. Home, family, faces I loved all dangling precariously at a point of reckoning. Ethan, what do we do? I breathed, the weight of fear now compounded with urgency for our loved ones. But before we could brainstorm our next move, a loud crash drew our attention. The cafe door burst open, and a hooded figure stepped inside. Eyes filled with a desperation I recognized too well. Get out! You need to run! She shouted, breathless as panic twisted her features. Who are you? I stammered, genuinely bewildered. I'm someone who knows you're in danger more than you realize. Now hurry. Ethan's eyes met mine, tension rippling between us, and as we stood there at the precipice of decision, I felt the shadows of what lay ahead stretch over us. This was a turning point, a moment that could change everything, and yet, deep down I sensed that multiple layers of chaos were still waiting to be unveiled. And then the figure from the screen reappeared, flanked by ominous shadows sealing our fate. We had entered a new phase of this unfathomable game. And all too soon, I realized we were running out of time. I lay awake in the darkness, heart racing, my mind a jumbled mess of thoughts and fears. I could still hear the echo of that man's voice, the threats, the stakes. Everything had twisted and turned, until it felt impossible to disentangle the truth from the web of lies that ensnared us. Just moments ago we had stood at the edge of chaos, and now I was left grappling with the enormity of it all. Ethan, I murmured into the abyss, aware of his presence beside me, yet feeling miles apart. The world had shifted between us, pulling everything we thought we knew into a churning sea of uncertainty. How had we arrived at this brink, teetering over the unknown? He stirred beside me, a shadowy silhouette against the faint moonlight seeping through the window. "I'm here," he whispered back, his voice low yet steady, offering an anchor in this tempest. I turned, searching for reassurance in his gaze. "What do we do now?" The weight of his silence hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Every option swirled in my mind like autumn leaves caught in a whirlwind, dizzying and chaotic. His eyes darted to the window, the shadows outside mingling with the remnants of our confrontation. "We prepare ourselves," Ethan finally replied, a steel-like determination creeping into his tone. "We can't let them control the narrative any longer." I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me at the thought of seizing back our power. "Then we fight," I declared, certainty blossoming in my chest. "Together." Ethan nodded, and though anxiety still clung tightly to my thoughts, we dove into planning what was to come. As we strategized, I learned more about his past, the tangled threads of loyalty and betrayal that shaped him. His mother became a focal point, a woman he cherished but feared losing, woven into the very essence of this dangerous game. We pieced together everything we had, every person he knew, each fragment of intuition guiding us through the darkness. Hours turned into a swirling tapestry of hope and conviction as we plotted out each detail, like two warriors sharpening their swords before battle. "We need to expose them," Ethan said finally, bravely facing me, his eyes gleaming with that shared resolve. "We should start with the network. If we can find out who's behind this, we stand a chance." "I can help track them," I insisted. My heart raced at the prospect, the urge to be useful rippling through me. I was no longer just a bystander. I was a part of this, and it felt liberating that as dawn broke outside, the golden light spilling through the window cast hope across the room. We moved between determination and fear, transitioning from plans into action. Together we dug into tech, calls, and hidden rendezvous, our discoveries sinking like clockwork. Every moment spent in unity fortified the bond blossoming between us, a connection born out of chaos but nurtured by compassion. I pushed through slots of fear and uncertainty with Ethan beside me, and it felt tangible. The electric thrill humming between us. This monstrous situation had drawn us together in ways I never imagined possible. But just as we began to formulate a coherent plan, that familiar voice rang out like a siren-esque call, slithering through my thoughts. The taunts from the man in the cafe rippled through my memory. Would we really succeed? What consequences lay ahead for those we loved? The gnawing uncertainty tugged at me, unraveling the resolve forged through the night. Just then the door swung open, and there stood the woman from before, the one who had warned us. "You have to come right now. They're here." The sudden replacement of calm with chaotic urgency jolted me from my thoughts. I exchanged a glance with Ethan, his expression a mixture of determination and dread. "Let us go," he said, stepping into action. The heat of the moment propelled us forward, though I could feel the shadows creeping behind once more, the suffocating weight of the past merging into our present. We rushed down narrow streets, darting into alleyways, desperately trying to escape whatever threat loomed large and ominous. The woman, a fierce, driven force, guided us through twists and turns, as we moved on instinct. "We need to find shelter," she urged. "Somewhere safe to regroup." "For how long?" Ethan shot back, his voice crackling with frustration and fear. "What if they find us again?" "They won't," she replied, a trace of assertiveness lacing her words. "I know how to stay ahead of them, but we need to act fast." And then it happened. The crash of glass echoed near us, sharp and unrelenting, filling the air with a tension that stung my skin. My heart raced as instinct shouted at me to run, to flee from whatever danger lurked in the shadows. The woman turned abruptly, her eyes wide and fierce. "This way," she directed, and our feet obeyed, pounding against the pavement, searching desperately for sanctuary in the inching darkness. As we rounded a corner, a flicker of dread coursed through me, and in that moment, everything came crashing against the walls of my heart, the realization that the web we had tried to smooth over was tightening again, wrapping itself around us like invisible chains. Suddenly, a figure appeared ahead, cloaked in shadows but unmistakably recognizable. My breath caught in my throat. "Ethan, stop!" I cried out, terror flooding my vision. But it was too late. He'd already rushed forward, a tornado of emotion and anger propelling him against the man who had imposed darkness on our lives once too often. "Why are you doing this?" Ethan demanded, fury etched deeply into his features. "What do you want from us?" "I want to end this game," the man replied, his voice a low growl. "And unless you're willing to reconsider your choices, this will all come crashing down." My heart sank, the weight of his words echoing painfully within me. I felt like I was standing at the edge of a precipice, and the cracks so intricately woven around our lives had begun to splinter dangerously beneath us. An internal struggle clashed within me, a desire to protect, to fight, and yet the breath of fear wrapped tightly around my throat. Was this it? Had we reached the brink where everything we fought for might unravel? "Enough of this," the woman interjected, stepping forward, her courage unyielding. "The game you've dragged us into has gone far enough. We won't bow to your rules." Something within me shifted. I began to blend with the fear. I realized this was no longer just Ethan and me, it was a collective force igniting hope against the malevolence hovering over us. The fight was larger now, intertwined with the lives of those we wanted to protect. Suddenly, the atmosphere surged with electricity, the air thickening around us as choices hung in the balance like pendulums. "What's it going to be, Ethan?" I urged, gripping his arm for support. "This is our time to stand together." And then time seemed to fracture. Beneath the weight of that moment, I could feel the threads of fate beginning to weave anew. This wasn't just about obsession and power. It was about fighting for what truly mattered. As our gazes locked, I saw it then, something immense and unwavering. He was ready to fight, and so was I. The shadows that loomed behind us would soon be met by the bond we had forged through fire and turmoil. And in that suspended breath we stepped forward together, fear meeting courage, uncertainty blending with resolve. And for the very first time, the weight of forgiveness flickered in the air like a beacon, resilient and bright, lifting us up amid the darkness threatening to pull us down. "Let us end this," I said, heart-pounding, voice steady. It was time to confront the chaos head-on. I knew now there was no backing down. As the confrontation swirled around us, I felt peace settle over my heart, knowing we had breached the storm and would emerge stronger than before. Ethan and I would write our own story in the shadows, one forged from each challenge, each perilous twist, and every step toward redemption. And just before we forged onward, ready to embrace whatever darkness lingered, I breathed in deeply, letting the sun filter through the very edges of uncertainty that had threatened to consume us. Together we would illuminate the night. And as we faced the man, I thought of him, the drowning billionaire who would never again be just a mere shadow. This time we were more than survival. We were a force, a relentless tide against which nothing could stand unopposed. And for the first time I felt free.